Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Berak Hussain. I'm the International Student Counsellor at Carleton University in Ottawa. Welcome to another one of our health promotion workshops. This time, we are talking about managing stress for exams, especially as we head into the exam season coming up in a few weeks. For all of you who are students, hopefully this workshop will be very useful for you in looking at different strategies in terms of how to manage stress and how to deal with it, especially during exam time. We'll take a closer look at that. Just waiting for more people to join in. It will be a live and interactive workshop, so please don't hesitate to ask questions, and I will also ask questions, and then you can also interact with me, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So as people come in, just going to pop up our screen here in terms of what we'll be taking a look at. And around exam time, it is normal that we kind of feel the way that this young man is feeling, especially as we head into the last few weeks with midterms and final assignments. And of course, during the pandemic, it's been quite stressful and challenging. So that is a whole other new level of online studies, right? And it's not as interactive as it once was with our professors and so on and so forth. So of course it does give you a lot more challenges than before. So we're just waiting for a few more people to join us and we'll get right into it. All right, so I think we have a few more people watching. Let's get started with the exam stress workshop in terms of taking a look at how to deal with exam stress as we head into the next few weeks. So we're going to take a look at what stress is. For those of you who joined in on the last workshop, if you have not, it is on our Carleton Wellness Facebook page. You can access that and take a look at all the great strategies and information and quite detailed workshop that we did on how to manage stress. I'll go over a few things today. We also did a nice live meditation in the last session, so that is all there for you to access. We'll take a look at how to manage stress for exams, and just ignore that last line. That's for when we head into the winter holidays. So let's take a look at what stress is and how to understand it better given how our body responds to stress. So we understand that stress is the body's physical response to a perceived threat or a demand. And usually our body goes into the flight or fight response, right? And stress and anxiety, they both add to the challenge and the opportunity, which serve as a motivation for preparing ourselves for whatever the demand or the threat asks of us to do. So each of us has an optimal level of stress and different ways of coping, what we like to call a stress print, right? So each of us has our own stress print, just like we would have our own individual fingerprint, we would have our own individual stress print. So surpassing that optimal level, when that happens, it obviously can have a negative impact on us. And it can be quite stressful as well. So it's really important to understand what our stress prints are, so that when we are faced with the difficulties of our stressors and the demand or the threat, we know how to respond, because our body's sending all these signals. So then we know how to respond in the best way to that perceived threat. Now, a lot of us, in terms of what the stress print could include, so we can see here, signs could be insomnia, the sleep, right? Oversleeping or undersleeping. It could be that there's a lot of challenges within our appetites as well. There could be too much of an appetite, too little of an appetite. So that's really important to be aware of, right? A lot of people say stress eating, right? Or comfort food. Some people completely lose their appetite. I'm one of those people. I lose my appetite. We could have a lot of behavioral changes, right? So it could be from moodiness, we could withdrawal from people around us and our interactions. We could also have symptoms of depression as well. We could also experience headaches, right? Stomach issues and a variety of muscle tension as well issues. It could be more illnesses, right? Colds, flu, muscle aching, like we said, because your immunity has gone down, because there's a direct link to stress hormones that are released in our system that can cause lower immunities as well. And of course, stomach challenges like IBS. So if we continue on here, there's a whole variety of signs and symptoms of stress that we can identify with. Like I said, in our previous workshop, we went into quite a bit of detail, and it's all access there that you have to go into this activity of understanding what is your actual stress print. What are the things that happen to you when you are stressed that you need to become familiar with, so you know how to cope and deal with them as they do happen. If we go on further here, what we want to understand is how additional sources of stress can also impact us, right? Financial pressures, frustration or disappointment, the perception of the lack of time to meet these demands, right? New or multiple decisions to make, all of these can have such a huge impact on that, right? So the way we view a situation or an event contributes more to the generation of a stress response than the actual stress itself, right? The way that we think can greatly affect the chance that we will experience such a stress. So for example, negative ways of thinking, right? Overgeneralizing, pessimism, overanalyzing, rigid thinking. These are things that we spent quite a bit of time focusing on in the previous session. So I highly encourage you to go back to that and take a closer look at that. And then here we can see that new or multiple decisions, like we said, that can also trigger a lot of stress. The social pressures around us, family issues, relationships, of course, exams, and any holiday coming up, whether it's from the winter Christmas holidays, perhaps the family gatherings, Thanksgiving, Easter, or any religious or spiritual holidays where it's expected that families are supposed to meet, but we know during the pandemic, there's a different stress now, right? Well, we're not perhaps meeting with our families like we once were. And that can also contribute greatly to our stressors, right? Because we want to be spending, or perhaps some don't, right? So it truly depends. But essentially, we do know that the pandemic has had a huge impact. A year ago, when we were doing these workshops, we quickly shifted online, and we've continued offering online programs at the clinic, at the Health and Counseling Service, to make sure that it's accessible for all students to use. So we do know, like we were saying, that heading into any holiday, it's not the same this year, and we are encountering different challenges along the way with that. And when we take a look at managing stress, a lot of it also has to do with understanding that living a stress-free life, so to speak, that is not a reasonable or realistic goal, because we know that there's going to be stress in every phase of our life, right? Whether you were a child, whether you were a teenager, a young adult, an older adult, we have stress in every phase of our life. It's how we choose to deal with it, right? So the idea here, the goal, is how to deal with it effectively and actively. If we go on further to take a look at common stress management techniques, and again, I spent quite a bit of time in our last session going into detail with each one of these, but we'll do a quick overview here for your benefit. It's really important to understand our basic self-care and lifestyle strategies, such as eating healthy, good sleep hygiene, mini breaks, exercise, right? Again, I went through these pretty quickly, but each one of these, we can go into quite a bit of depth to understanding how to make sure that we have these. Because when we have these 3 or 4 things in good balance, and then we are hit with a difficult situation, we are more likely to handle that difficult situation much better than when these things are off balance. So if we focus on balancing them, whatever situation comes our way, we can handle it better, right? We can't change that situation. We don't have control over that situation, but we certainly have the ability to work on dealing with it and with a choice, depending on how these factors are in balance, right? Interpersonal strategies could include having good relationships, social supports around us, learning how to say no and setting boundaries, of course. Learn and using good communication skills. That is crucial as well, right? Emotional strategies include nurturing self activities. So it could be anything from reading a good book that has nothing to do with school, which is challenging during exam time, but definitely you can balance that throughout the school year, right? Learning how to express your feelings, laughing more often, relaxation techniques. And again, in our previous session, we went into quite a bit of detail looking at a variety of different relaxation techniques, from breathing techniques to muscle tension relaxation, visualization, meditation, and cognitive strategies, which have to do with challenging negative perspectives and so on and so forth. Spiritual philosophical strategies, of course, increasing prayer, faith, rituals can also, and there's been a lot of research, psychological, spiritual / religious research that shows the positive connection and significance of having faith in your life, depending on what your background is. So we know that there is definitely a positive impact on that. Clarifying your values and your goals can go a long way as well in terms of your path in life and where you stand. So these are just the basic overviews in terms of how we can look at managing our stress. And again, if you go back to the previous workshop, we went into much more depth there. So overall strategies have to do, again, just to review, good sleep hours, 6 to 8. I say 6 because some people, it's hard for them to go more than that, and they're fully functioning and capable, but usually we recommend 7 to 8 hours a night. Eating regular healthy meals and staying hydrated, right? Balancing between studies, work, and recreation is important, especially during the pandemic. Very, very vital that when you have an outlet for releasing the stress hormones that are built up in your body, right? Understanding and accept personal strengths and weaknesses, things that we can work on and improve, right? If you are somebody who does not have the brain and the ability and the interest, let's say, to study engineering, and your dream is to become a graphic designer, you know you're not going to perhaps have good outcomes in that engineering program, right? Whereas this requires a lot of self-awareness, and right, having that self-awareness can truly help you get on track in terms of what you want to work on, right? And understanding your strengths and abilities and limits. That is a huge part of knowing yourself and helping you figure out what you want to do as well, right? That's more career counseling type of concepts here, but it's definitely important to have that awareness, right? And this can be applied in all areas, not just in your academics, right? In your personal life, your relationships, your hobbies, your interests. When you know what your abilities and strengths you have, you want to maximize that and definitely work on the things that need improvement, but understanding your limits, that can also help reduce a lot of stress, right? Taking frequent breaks during study periods. Did you know that taking a 10-minute walk outside in fresh air gives you 2 hours of study energy? Absolutely. So this is something that we highly encourage people to do to help you get through difficult times, especially when you've got so much to study and so much material and you think, how am I ever going to get through this? Taking those regular breaks can help re-energize you. So Using your support network, that is also helpful, like we said, with exercise and learning and practice relaxation skills. So again, go back to the previous workshop that we did that is on the Carleton Wellness Facebook page to learn more about how you can apply these daily into your lives. So now let's take a look at studying, right? And looking at some specific strategies for exam revision, all right? So we deliberately do this workshop a few weeks before exams because we want to say begin studying now. Possibly a little bit challenging given the fact that you probably still have a lot of assignments and work that you need to get done. However, while you're finishing up your assignments, you probably have an idea of what your exam is going to be covering so that you can start revision now in terms of the content and being aware of what's going to be on the exam, right? So clarifying areas that you need to study. Perhaps there are some past studying or past content that you don't necessarily need for the upcoming exam. You're not going to spend time on that, right? You're going to leave that and focus on the content that you're going to be tested on, right? So your focus is going to be on that, and also areas that you need to improve and need to understand. Perhaps there's concepts and chapters that you've already covered and you understand, and there are others that you need to work on. So the focus can be on there. So once you have that overall idea in your head in terms of, oh, this is what I need to study, then you feel like you have more control as opposed to not knowing what's going to happen, right? Not knowing what you need to study. I find that this workshop has also been very helpful for the students who, when we did this face-to-face and we had a lovely lunch by dining services, we don't obviously anymore. However, what I found in terms of feedback from the students, they said that this workshop was greatly beneficial for them heading into exams because a lot of the strategies they were able to apply, which helped reduce exam stress, which also helped them do better. And I got this feedback after they did the workshops, right? So these are the overall strategies that you can place to help you feel, a little bit more control in terms of the exams coming up, right? So organizing a time plan as well. You can start off with, all right, so I've got 3 weeks of exams. How am I going to break things down for each exam? And definitely you can call or contact the employees that work at the Student Academic Success Center, also known as CSASC, and the 4th floor of the library. It's all virtual, and you can have a study skills specialist that can also sit with you one-on-one virtually. And this is for Carleton students, of course, to help you look at different strategies to help in terms of how to organize a time plan, right? But definitely the idea with that is to look at the schedule of your exam, look at the exams, right? And look at your content, right? In terms of going back to clarifying what you need to study. And allocate time. So I need, 2.5 days for this exam. I need 2, and I've got a 3-day break. So now, and 2 exams coming up. So perhaps the focus is on the first, and then the next one, I'm going to have so-and-so. So you can actually draw it out, have a calendar, and then jot things down in terms of time plan. You can also have a study group, and you can still do that virtually, absolutely, with classmates. You can set that up, talk to your classmates. If there's the opportunity to do that kind of group work, you can do the study group as well. And working on enhancing your memory, right? So this helps you when you do this ahead of time. And when we take a look at enhancing your memory, right? So we'll take a look at strategies in the next slide. However, when we take a look at that, we want to test your memory after each session that you review, right? So every hour, go back and look at what you studied at the end of the day, and so on and so forth, right? So when we also take a look at a time plan, you want to start when you say you start, stop when you say you stop, right? Take a look at 45 minutes and taking a 10-minute break, right? And scheduling a half-hour break at least into each morning, afternoon, or evening. And this may sound unrealistic, but if you can treat your study plan like a 9 to 5 type of job, or perhaps a little bit longer, then you can fit all of this in a little bit better, right? It's all about strategy, focusing on what you need to study on and what areas you're weak, and give that more attention to focus on, right? Now, in terms of enhancing your memory, let's take a look at some brain food for peak performance. Definitely we want to be drinking a lot of water, right? The idea of this whole strategy here is eating a balanced diet, right? Which includes fresh foods, especially fruits and vegetables. And we know this is vital these days with the pandemic to boost up our immunity, right? And regular eating at meal times if that's possible, especially breakfast, right? Which can then help maximize your brain function and manage your stress levels more effectively and help with that peak performance and memory, right? So with water, we know that's important to keep hydrating yourself. We want to also reduce caffeine intake. The idea there is that caffeine can also intensify physical symptoms of stress and shaking when it comes to anxiety, right? We also, you can use herbal teas, right? Or use decaf. I love coffees and teas, but I switched over to decaf because I know from my stress print, caffeine can actually trigger a lot of stress symptoms for me, right? And I do find myself shaking and the heart rate is pumping and it's just very, very uncomfortable. I don't want to deal with that, right? So when you have it set up this way where you're having decaf drinks, you still enjoy it, and it has the placebo effect of allowing you to think, or your brain, that you are having a caffeinated drink because of the taste, right? So refueling, like we said, begin with breakfast. What happens when you are having your breakfast? You are breaking literally your fast, right? When you haven't been eating all night. And this fuels your brain, whether it's a smoothie or overnight oatmeals or having things pre-prepped ahead of time. Avocado, eggs, there's definitely a lot of things that you could do quickly to give your brain that boost of energy in the morning and the glucose that it needs to keep going and going and going. Also eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, because that can have a lot of slow release carbs in your body for energy, right? When we take a look at eating less fast foods, which means fatty, salty, sweet, to de-sludge. Ever get that feeling after? You just feel, you get that into that food coma and you don't feel like eating, right? What I find interesting, and I can attest to this, is that I have completely changed the way I eat. I was always a healthy eater, except I decided to go do this detox for 2 weeks, which I kept it up for months now because I've gotten so used to how to eat this way. And I find to be less sluggish. And this intake of food, essentially all it includes is fruits, vegetables, and protein. And the carbs that I would get are from fruits and vegetables. No carbs at all, meaning bread or pastas, cakes, or any of that. I've even switched to making cakes from almond flour, believe it or not, and sweet potatoes. So it's interesting, including dairy, by the way. So I do almond milk, oat milk. So I've stopped doing actual dairy cheese, which I absolutely love. I'm one of those 3% organic milk drinkers. I don't take that anymore. Even in my coffees and teas, I'll use almond or oat milk. And it's taken a while to adjust to the taste, but it works. And what I found interesting is that I don't have any more issues or in my stomach where I felt bloated before. And also, I don't have that de-sludging that we're describing here, right? So it's really interesting that when you switch the way you eat into a more healthier way, you notice yourself to be more alert, more awake, and you know how to feed your brain and your body for that, right? Let's take a look at nuts here. Nuts are great for memory, right? If you look at little walnuts, they look like mini brains, right? So almonds, cashews have been shown to have great benefits for antidepressant type of feeling in there, so to speak, when you eat cashews. Almonds are known for headaches as well, walnuts for memory, but nuts in general are great for memory. So I'm just going to quickly go through a few things as well here. When we look at nicotine, it also has the same impact as caffeine, right? When we look at processed sugars, right, that intake, the excessive refined sugar intake, can cause a sudden drop in blood pressure, right? And then you could experience what hypoglycemic experience, right? Sodium intake, we want to reduce that as well, because the excessive sodium, so salt, that can also increase your blood pressure, which can cause a lot of dizziness, right? When we look at protein, this is an important source in our diet, necessary for energy, cellular immunity, and hormone production, right? And vitamin C and vitamin B complex vitamin sources, these are from broccoli, tomatoes, citrus fruits, potatoes as well. This is also important, as we know, in immunity. And we also want to include a source of calcium. So it could be milk products, tofu, zinc comes from seafood perhaps, potassium. We want to get that from bananas, dark green leafy vegetables. So I'm sure you've heard this before. These are just reminders, but always look at your plate of food. Does it include a lot of these food groups? to help maximize the energy. So these are very useful brain foods for our peak performance. Keep them in mind as you head into our exam season. Now let's take a look at restoring our brain power through sleep, right? You want to learn how to catch your sleep wave, right? So for example, reading, but not studying necessarily until you feel sleepy. You're not going to quite remember what you're studying right before, but reading can help you before you're sleepy, right? And then allow sleep to take over. So learning when it is that is your optimal sleep time and maximizing that, right? Learning your own sleeping patterns, right? When you are most likely to fall asleep. Know when that happens for you. Just before exam time is not the best time to change your habits. So maybe doing it a few weeks before ahead can help you, or perhaps a month or so ahead can really help you work with that. I say this and I laugh at myself because I know I have horrible sleeping patterns. That's because I'm a night owl, and I definitely need to work on boosting up my sleep patterns and learning more about them, especially when you work early and you've got a family. Definitely need to get to bed earlier, and that also helps with your brain power as well, like we were saying, right? We also want to establish a routine of sleep times and wake times, right? So you want to train your body and your mind to expect sleep and waking up times. And we say even including the weekends. We say, oh, the weekends I get to sleep in, stay up late. If you do that, you'll notice Monday mornings are brutal, right? So you want to be able to have a consistent routine with that. Again, we want to aim for that 8 hours a night. I know with student life, it is near impossible to do. So it really helps to set an alarm to when to go to sleep and even to wake up, no matter what your mind is doing, right? Tell yourself you'll wake up refreshed just before the alarm goes off. So that's also a nice trick to do. So let's take a look at some exam strategies, all right? Right before the exam, when it comes to sleep, that night before, make sure that you have that good night's sleep, right? So before we get into that, just a few things that I want to mention as well. Otherwise, you'll be having reoccurring nightmares like a lot of us do when you don't do these things ahead of time, right? So you want to have practical preparations in terms of finding out all the information that you can about the exam before the actual day so you can plan ahead, right? So this can reduce number of things that you'll have to worry about for the day. So for example, you want to know where the exam is. Believe it or not, there are some people who don't know when their exams are. So it's really important to understand when is it and where is it, right? How long will it take you to get there? So do a trial run. I know a lot of us are doing it online these days, so that's not an issue. But again, you still need to prepare yourself in terms of the time and space to do the exam, right? For those of us who had to drive or get there by bus, especially in Ottawa winter weather, that was a nightmare, which I think is removed now. So we don't have to worry about that. So it's really important when you're doing public transport and so on and so forth. Once we get back to full face studies rather on campus, is to make sure you know how long it's going to take to get there, right? So we know right now, because it's online, knowing what the exam is going to be like ahead of time, learn what the online requirements are going to be like, what you do need to do to begin the exam, right? So having your student card information, your pens and pencils, everything is pretty much online now, but you still need to have these around your calculator, your watch, because you are going to need that for your exams, right? And what are the rules and the regulations? So know this stuff, right? So the night before the exam, you want to gather all the things that you need the night before, not the morning of, so that you don't have to search for them in the morning. So preparing ahead of time goes a long, long way. So like we said, having a good night's sleep is important, right? To get that so that you're able to concentrate at your optimal level, getting there, preparing good time, that's really important. So getting, again, all of these tools and giving yourself plenty of time, right? So that way you are not too stressed, you know, to avoid getting caught up in conversations with others and stuff. Like right now, we said it's not the same because it's online. And just talking to other people for the exam can kind of get you a little bit nervous in terms of what was covered, what was not, right? That'll only stress you further. So perhaps, you know, calming yourself, doing some deep breathing, meditation, body tension, relaxation techniques, that can really help you. And just having positive statements repeated to yourself, that can have a huge positive impact as well. Now, let's take a look at strategies during the exam, after we had taken a look at before the exam. So definitely read and listen to the instructions very carefully, right? Listen. And to the oral instructions if it's through video, and see how that's done as well, right? You want to read your instructions very carefully, right? And make sure you focus. I know it's hard. We tend to just jump through and then we skip important information. So make sure that you do have that and plan your time effectively, right? So for example, allocating time in proportion to certain percentage, right, of the assessment. So for example, you've got 3 equal sections in 2 hours, right? This means around 40 minutes per section. So you want to aim to complete the main part of each in about 30 minutes. And then you've got 5 to 10 minutes on each in terms of filling in anything that you've missed or not attempted. And then the final 5 to 10 minutes, you can check for mistakes, clarify answers, revision, and add further information, right? You also want to choose the order in which you'll answer the questions, right? So numbering the questions, or rather the answers, carefully as well, that can go a long way. And don't panic. If you don't know an answer, skip it, go on to the next one. Spend your time answering questions of what you do know rather than worrying about what you have not done or what you don't know. Another trick also is when we take a look at this, when it comes to essay type questions, right? You want to write out dotted point plan, like, so just point form everything that you're going to have on your essays. I recall as a student, I would run out of time. I wouldn't have the time to write an essay at the end, right? And so what I would do is say, sorry, ran out of time. Here are my points for my conclusion or my last point. And I would just write everything out in point form. Honestly, a TA or a prof really doesn't want to spend all that time reading anyways, right? So having point forms can go a long way, especially if you run out of time. That can be quite helpful for you. When it comes to multiple choice answers, right? Don't change your answers unless you're 100% sure. Sometimes following questions or the questions before can also clue you in, but don't change unless you know 100%. Chances are that first one was right to begin with, right? So let's go on here to continue in terms of other strategies. Make sure that you do leave time for revision, right? At the end, if it's possible, don't leave early. So especially don't leave early because you're panicking or you're upset that you've messed up something, you know, what you haven't learned it that way before. However, if you are actually having a panic attack or you're feeling faint, shortness of breath, or dizzy, or feeling like you flushes and chills and all of that, that you're going to lose control, feeling overwhelmingly powerless, then at this point, definitely important to seek medical attention. Let your professor know, let also others know who are monitoring the exam, right? But in all other cases, continue to finish the exam and do the best you can. Because number one, you have tackled your anxiety demon rather than let it win, right? And number two, who knows, you may actually have done better than you think, right? You can always apply for special consideration after the exam if something went wrong. We know we have this at Carleton, right? So you get a form from the exam proctor, and you need to let them know online as well if you do need to leave or you want to defer your exam. And you will probably need to get a medical note from your doctor or therapist, right? Another one is don't have postmortems, right? The idea there is wait for getting the feedback from your exam and try to learn what mistakes you made rather than after handing it in and you're just really upset and you can't focus on your next exam. That's really important to be aware of, is that what you do in this exam could impact your next one. So you didn't do well, just put it in a box, so to speak, put it on the shelf, say, I'll deal with you later. Right now, I got to focus on my next 2-3 exams coming up, right? We're not going to let that exam overtake us for the other ones. So it's really important to have the exercise again of just allowing it to go by like a cloud, putting it in a box, putting away, and being able to focus on the next parts of what we need to do. So let's take a look at what your plan is for mastering your exams, right? Just like we mentioned earlier in our previous workshop, understand what your own stress sprint is, especially for exams, right? Look at the factors that can increase your stress level, right? What can you change? What can you accept? Identify the revision and stress management strategies that work best for you. And then this just requires mastery, right? I recall as a student, it was really helpful and useful to find a space that was very comfortable for me. I was an Ottawa U student, so I was a GG, not a Raven as I am now. And I recall that I really enjoyed studying in the law library, even though I was a psych science student. I enjoyed studying in the law library. I found a really nice corner in one of the other libraries within the library, and it was quiet. They had this really nice green lamps, the lawyer lamps at the table, and it was really silent, but I used earplugs anyways because I wanted a certain silence to be able to focus. I found that really useful and helpful. So find a corner in your house, space, and I know right now in the pandemic it's quite different and challenging, but we got to find a space that works for us, and having our snacks ready and having energy brain food on hand, and being able to take our breaks as needed as well, right? And it just requires practice. So final tips for managing our exam anxiety: we want to stay on a regular schedule of reviewing, eating, sleeping, and relaxing. It's really important, right? We want to try to start this pattern several days, if not weeks, which is why we do this workshop now, to help people prepare and plan for it. Don't try to study 24 hours a day. Our brain cannot handle more than 45 minutes or so. Everybody's different, of course, but this is just a general advice. Don't force yourself to study beyond your normal limits of concentration. That's just going to backfire, right? You want to be able to understand how you best focus and study, and then work with that, right? Short, regular study periods, these are more effective and productive than the lengthy single ones. Again, this all depends. I've had times where that was helpful for me and other times where it wasn't. And every student I've heard has got a different way of doing it as well, right? Again, it all comes down to managing our sleep, our eating, and our exercise levels to de-stress so that we're able to focus and concentrate on our stressors for exams. All right. So I think we have covered everything that we need to in terms of taking a look at the basics of our stress for our exam studying. So anybody have any questions? So somebody mentioned here, according to some of the signs that we talked about earlier, you've definitely surpassed your optimal stress levels. So what we want to do then is go back and look at how can you balance things out with your eating, sleeping, and exercise so that you can handle these stressors better, right? I think it's normal at different times of our lives, we are having a lot of stress put upon us, and especially in this unprecedented year that we've had. And I know a lot of students have really been impacted with how they are dealing with the school, especially online. And I think we are at an all record in terms of students struggling, and that is normal right now. And I think it's really important to hear it, that it is normal that people are struggling with the stressors, right? So normalizing stress can go a long way in understanding how we can deal with stress, right? So that normalization can go a long way, like we said. Just understanding stress, understanding how it impacts us, especially during exam time, especially as students right now, just normalizing it can really help us cope and deal with that stress, right? So once you know what your levels are and you've surpassed it, then you definitely want to go back to lowering that stress level. So for those who are observing fasting during the holy month of Ramadan that is coming up, it can be very challenging for students as well with the different schedules. So if there are conflicting exams back to back that are going to really impact you with your focus and your energy, please do speak with the exam services at Carleton University or whichever post-secondary educational place, or even if you are a high school student, you absolutely can make arrangements. Just talk to the services that you have available to help you with that. And what's interesting, there's lots of research and studies that show that people actually focus a lot more better during these times of fasting. So I found, not as a student, I'm trying to remember, it was quite a bit back, we got all through it. We all got through it. We managed and we got through it. But definitely I find during the workday, when there is fasting, you're not distracted by food, right? You're not distracted by going to the washroom and trying to get the caffeine in or whatever that it is that you're craving. Your focus and attention is definitely on your studying, right? So for studying, I find during this time, it's probably best to do it after you have broken your fast, right? I know that's not realistic given that you still have to study during the day, but there are definitely a lot of energy brain food that you can eat before your fast begins that can also help you throughout the day. So there's lots of articles out there. I recommend for you to research them. If you'd like, pop me an email, and I've got a few from the last few years that I'd be more than happy to share. Here is my contact information at Carleton University. If you have any questions, if you want this presentation, I'll be more than happy to share it with you. And for those Carleton students who are struggling, or you'd like to speak with a counselor, or if you have a medical issue, we are running from 8:30 to 3:45, 4:40. Every day, Monday to Friday. You can call. We are doing virtual appointments at the moment, so please do take advantage of these services that are available for you. Also, for students who would like further supports, you can definitely check out the, I always mess up, CSASC, so the Center for Student Academic Success. I hope I got that correct. At Carleton University, where you can sit one-on-one with a study skills specialist, and they can be more than happy to help you, whether it's planning your exam study schedule, study strategies. They've got some wonderful workshops as well as other resources and tools on their website. I'm just going to quickly grab their website and post it on the screen where you guys can benefit from that. And even students who are not Carleton students, you absolutely can benefit from them as well. It is accessible to everybody. So just give me a moment while I get that resource for you, and I will pop it up on the screen where you can access this wonderful support. There you go. So here it is right there. So carleton.ca/CSAS. I'm actually going to share the screen so you can see. Just give me a moment while I bring that up on our screen here. And you can take a look at these resources that are available to you. So I'm going to remove here, and I will add this resource for you to access. They've got wonderful, like I said, wonderful resources for anybody who would like to access it, really, not just Carleton students, as it is accessible. So here we are. Let's take a look at this website. So as you can see here, they've got learning support services. You can see here on the side, learning support workshops, different incentive programs. They got peer-assisted study sessions as well that you can take advantage. It's a program called PASS. So there's lots of great information there for you as well. They've got online resources here, all sorts of resources for you to take advantage of, right? So academic writing, acing your assessment, like writing, prepping, a lot more here for you to access as well. And a lot more information again about their team and who are the wonderful people that work at CSAS that can help you with your academics. We've got all their names there and contact information if you need to get a hold of them. So they also have writing services as well, so that can also be very useful. So highly recommend that you check out these resources for Carleton students. You definitely would have access to these support services that can go a long way in helping you, especially during exams. For those of you who are with the Paul Minton services, that is definitely another resource that you can access that can go a long way in helping you as well. And of course, don't forget the health and counseling services that you have right here at the bottom, where you can access our supports. You can check out the website, look for other programs coming up and workshops and groups. And I hope that you have a wonderful few weeks. Wonderful, probably not the best word, but how about this? Productive and reduce stress few weeks heading into the exam season. And like I said, you are more than welcome to use the services that we have here to help you with that. So if you have any questions, you can email me, just like we had showed you at the end of the workshop, Berak_Hussain@carleton.ca. I'd be more than happy to share the workshop that we presented to you today. If you have any other questions or feedback, please don't hesitate to share them. And good luck for those of you who are heading into exams. Wish you the best of luck. And just for those who will be having fasting or doing the holy month of Ramadan during the exams, I wish you Ramadan Mubarak ahead of time and good luck with everything that you're doing. So stay tuned for more workshops and more events and programs from Carleton Wellness, as well as the health and counseling services at Carleton University. Thank you very much for those of you who participated and joined today, and we'll see you next time. Take care.